Maybe I need
My
to do it this way.
story of the family disease of alcoholism that I've experienced. I am not a professional in this field and I'm not an expert. I'm just, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I was a wife of an alcoholic. I myself am a recovering alcoholic of 14 years, and I am a mother of a recovering alcoholic of 5 years. So I have a very colorful resume in this family disease of alcoholism. But I would like to start with a few things. We are not alone. Um, this disease um, is very lonely, or it isolates you if you let it. But there's people out there that are just like us and looking for help. And until you come to that point of reaching out for help, you will feel very isolated and different. But there is hope and there is help. And this disease of alcoholism in your family can be broken. And I've watched several of these meetings, and I have heard, and this is so true, this statement: I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. So, a couple of things from my experience as a adult child of an alcoholic. I look back, I was adopted, so I don't really have like the blood family that I can look back and say, oh yes, this was my grandfather. But I can look back in my parents' generations, and there was alcoholism in my parents, and there's alcoholism in my generation. And the thing is, the alcoholism affects a lot of people that aren't the alcoholic, and it has long reaching arms. And whenever we have alcoholism in our family, or we are the alcoholic, we develop tools to cope with our alcoholism or with the alcoholism of another, and it becomes our way of life to survive. And alcoholism is a very selfish disease. It destroys relationships, and it, it tells us that we're not good enough and that our feelings don't matter. And that that is why I, as an alcoholic, wanted to just numb. I didn't want to communicate my feelings or to communicate with my family what I was feeling. And so I learned how to cope with my alcoholism is just to numb myself. And there was a lot of enablers in my life. I had the span of about 30 years of active alcoholism. And by the grace of God, when I was 45, I hit my bottom, and I chose to reach out for help finally. I had been in and out of many support groups and 12-step groups, and just thought that it I wasn't really serious, because I thought, well, I'll do this and maybe stop for a while. But until I hit my bottom and knew that it was life or death, then I was just in and out, and not having a very manageable life. So when I hit my bottom, my daughter was she was 18, I believe. So I was an active alcoholic in her life up until she was 18. And she saw me go in and out, and, never believed that, oh, this was the time. So when I made my decision, I it was at a point where we were fighting because she was in high school and she was starting her career in the disease of alcoholism. And so I stopped for about a year, and but I wasn't happy, and I didn't have any kind of support group because I chose to do it on my own. And so I wasn't setting a very good example of not drinking or recovering from alcoholism. And so whenever she she was doing her thing in high school, and she told me a lie, and that was about the last time of this lie that I wanted to hear. So I took away her car, and she walked out of my house, and she told me not to try to find her, and she's my only child. And I thought, this is it. She's 18, she's going into her senior year, and that I would never see her in my house again. And so at that point, I had not drank for a year, and I struggled with myself for 3 hours trying to talk myself in not going to get some beer. And I drove to the farthest Buy for Less in Oklahoma City, and I was still trying to talk myself out of it, and I couldn't, because I didn't have the tools, the healthy recovering tools that you need from support groups to deal with your feelings and to cope in communicating what you need. And so I drank for 3 days, and she was gone for a month. And so I decided on that third day that I had to make a decision. And you could say that that was my bottom, because nobody was there for me. It was me by myself, and I knew I had to choose either life or death. And the death I knew would have been physical. And I decided that I didn't want to die, and I dumped all my alcohol out, and I called a friend that I knew had gone to treatment, and I told him that I wanted to go to a meeting with him. And so all this was like kind of on my own, because nobody, my parents, my daughter, after all the pleading and fighting, I never could stop drinking. I had my father, he died of cirrhosis of the liver. My husband, my daughter's dad, he died an active alcoholic and drug addict. And those things still didn't make me say, I want to quit now. It was my bottom that I had to deal with on my own, and to make the decision that say, yes, this is the day. And so I started my program, and at this time, my daughter was going to graduate from high school, go on to college, and I knew that she was going down the same path as me. And I didn't know what was going to happen. So I just kept going to meetings, and she kept seeing the change in me. And so I was taking care of myself. So I guess that's my point, was I was showing her that I could get well, and that I was feeling happy, and I had peace and manageability in my life. And as she started her career and spiraling down, I didn't harp at her. I didn't fight with her anymore. I invited her once in a while to meetings, and then once in a while she would come with me, and she would, go her own way. But we were celebrating my 55th birthday, and she had gotten to her bottom that trip, and she came to me the next morning and said, "Mom, I think I'm ready to stop drinking." And at that point, she was going to go back to Oklahoma. I was going to go back to Montana. And so I couldn't go with her and hold her hand. I just had to rely on her seeing what I had done in my life. And I told her, "Well, you know what to do." And I said, "Call this lady and take it from there." And so I couldn't go with her and manage her sobriety. She called the lady and she took it from there, and has been sober now for 5 years. But during the time, whenever I was watching her, all I could do was pray that God would show her what he needed to show her so that she could make a decision someday to quit drinking. And I had to stay out of it. And that sounds kind of odd, staying out of it, but I couldn't control her. I couldn't manipulate her. I couldn't, enable her. And I was looking back on how my parents interacted with me. And for one thing, my mom, she would say, "Oh, Mary, you're not that bad of an alcoholic." And it's like, what what do you consider a bad alcoholic? And my dad, he died from cirrhosis of the liver, and he didn't believe in alcoholism. So those two were, my examples of, oh well, I can keep on going as long as I want to in this drinking. But with my daughter, I knew that I needed to show her I can take care of myself. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, parents with children that are in an addiction, the parents need help also. And I couldn't have done it without going to some kind of support group, reaching out, talking to people, and seeing that I'm not alone and that there is help for me. They don't tell you, "Oh, you need to do this and do that or do that," to make them stop drinking or using. They fill you with support and care and love, because at this point, parents, myself saying, what did I do wrong? And not being able to take care of yourself and fill yourself up with positive and love, and knowing that they have to go down a path, and you can be there and you can be loving and understanding, but you don't have to contribute to their spiral. And I had one lady in my support group, she told me this comment, which it always sticks in my mind. She said, "Just remember this, that God is there for you. And he tells me in the morning, 'Dear Mary, I don't need your help today. Love, God.'" So I try to remember that, and before I start getting all wound up thinking, "Oh, I need to keep her busy, I need to call her, I need to see what she's doing, and that's what I'm talking about, being hands off or detached with love, because she needed her own dignity to make her choices. And for me, I didn't have consequences for a long time. And so I knew that she needed to know her consequences if she made bad choices. And we, we tried contracts. I pleaded with her. I cried. She cried. We fought. But she had to go her own path and know the consequences. And I always did tell her that if she ever ended up in jail, not to call me. And that was very hard. And she knew I meant it because during her childhood, she had only called my bluff once. And I stood by my statement that I had said to her. And so she never called my bluff again. But she saw the life that I was getting by getting healthy and well. And so finally, when she was at her bottom, she knew the choice that she wanted to make. So I'm not sure I had notes. I kind of gotten off line, but I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, this would be a great time for anybody that's listening that may have questions to ask Mary about what her experience has been, perhaps in her own journey, or what her experience has been as a parent. This is the awkward pause. What was it like for you, Mary, from an emotional perspective, to set that kind of boundary with a daughter that was struggling that intensely with alcoholism?
It was very hard because I was just learning about boundaries myself, and she was my only child, and I was her only natural parent alive. And so we only had each other for a long time. And to look at her and to know what she was going through, because I had gone through it, was very hard. But I knew that I had to do it so that she could get to the other side. And God was there, and I had developed a relationship with him during my recovery, and had it not been for him and my support group, that it would have been impossible to go through that with a child.
You made the comment about following through with tough love.
Mm-hmm.
For you, what did you mean by that? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, if the time when she was in her high school, she kept lying to me about a certain thing. And I told her, if you lie to me one more time, I'm taking your car away and selling it. Well, I caught her in the lie one last time, and so I took her car away, and she really did think I sold it. I mean, I'm kind of backtracking here, but I hid it, and she thought I had sold it, and even everybody thought I had sold it. Her brother, she called her brother. Well, she didn't call her brother. I called her brother and said, you might want to talk to your sister because she's going through a bad time, and I hit her car. And he goes, well, don't you think she needs it? I said, well, I'm sure she does, because she walked out of my house and she knew she was going to have to get a job. She didn't have a car, and she asked me for it back, and I said no. And she goes, well, how am I supposed to get a job and get to a job? And I was like, well, you need to figure that out. And she had, during that month, she had asked to come home at one point, and I said, why do you want to come home? And her reason was not a very good reason. And I said, I don't think you're ready to come home. And that was very hard for me to say to her. But I told her that if she wanted to go to church with me that Sunday, I would pick her up. And we took little steps like that to develop a communication with us. And she went to church with me, and we went and had some lunch, and I took her back to where she was living. And so she really didn't know that I didn't sell her car until she came back home, and I told her that I still have her car, but she was going to have to know that I mean business about this. And I feel like if she had gone out for a couple weeks and said, okay, I'm ready to come back home, and said, okay, well, come back home, here's your car, I don't think that it would have set in her mind that I meant business.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions for Mary about what her experience has been like as a parent of an alcoholic or as a recovering alcoholic? I'll ask you this, Mary. What, with both of you being in solid recovery, what has that given you both in terms of your relationship with each other?
Well, it's given us our precious relationship back. Um, she's married and she started a family, and so we have a very good reason to continue our recovery, because we want this cycle to be broken. And it's it's given us both insights to each other. Even though I was an alcoholic, I still didn't realize the impact of her alcoholism, because I was um, taking care of myself, and I just didn't realize that she had gone through a lot of things that I had. But that's okay, because she had to know her choices and to deal with them just like I did. And luckily, her bottom was a lot sooner than mine. And I think that her getting uncomfortable with her choices and me not saying, okay, well, you don't need to get a job. I'll just, go to school and I'll keep giving you money. And that didn't happen. She had to work and she had to be responsible. And so I made it uncomfortable for her in the way she was choosing to live. But now I have so much respect for what she's done with her life, that she's a miracle in progress, and we both are. And it just makes me really happy that we get this second chance of life to be each other's cheerleaders, and to be happy with each other, and to have joy in our life and peace, and just love being with each other.
All right, this will be the last call for any questions for Mary about her experience as a mom, an alcoholic. Oh, here's one. If you had it to do over again, would you do the same boundary setting again, or would you do a different approach?
I would go the same path that I chose. I know I was doing the best I could, and that's what any parent is doing, is the best that they can. I might have try to get support a little bit sooner than what I had, and reach out to other people for help instead of trying to do it on my own. I think that is probably what I would do different.
Great, good question. Any other final questions for Miss Mary? Going once. Get them ready. I know you have to type them, so I'm going to give you an extra second or two. All right, now I'm going to do some fancy finagling and some disruptive stuff here. Your daughter commented, "Wonderful job," and that she loves you,
Thank you.
which I'm sure she's been listening. Okay, back to me. I'm not as nice to look at. So thank you guys for joining us. We are done for this year. We've wrapped up 2019 for our live stream meeting. So I'm going to not hold my hand in front of the Zoom camera. Sorry, guys, that was watching on Zoom. So be sure to be back. We're going to be back on Monday, January the 6th. Will be our first Monday of the new year, so make sure you catch us back in. Mary, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story with us, and for being vulnerable about everything you went through. I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas, and everybody has a great and safe new year, and we will see you guys January the 6th.